Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As Bennett stepped out of the conference room, he felt a sense of dread as his heart sank to the corporate tile floors. Smiling faces and cheery gossip filled the air as his coworkers left the quarterly staff meeting. Bennett hated this part, the feigned camaraderie, the plastic smiles, all masking the anxiety and performance pressure of office life. "Bennett, a word, please," Jennifer, the office manager, said in a level tone. Her voice was even, but her face was etched with concern. His stomach turned as he realized he had to stay while everyone else escaped. Bennett re-entered the room. The hum of the overhead lights sounded like a swarm of bees. Bennett's mouth went dry as he skimmed the document. "Me? Why me?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Jennifer leaned forward. "You have excellent rapport with clients. You're well respected among colleagues, and frankly, you have the right build. Plus, there's a $10,000 bonus upon completion." Bennett stared at the figure on the page. $10,000 would make a significant dent in his student loans. "Is this even legal?" he asked, his hands trembling slightly. "Completely. The legal team has vetted it thoroughly. It's voluntary, compensated, and temporary. We believe this exercise will help everyone examine their unconscious biases." Jennifer's professional tone never wavered. "Take the weekend to consider. We need your decision by tomorrow afternoon." Throughout the weekend, Bennett paced his apartment, alternating between outrage and curiosity. The substantial bonus was tempting, especially with his car needing repairs. By Sunday evening, after several glasses of whiskey and a long internal debate, he drafted an email accepting the proposition. Monday morning arrived with cruel speed. Bennett stood in Jennifer's office at 7:30 a.m., a full hour before anyone else would arrive. "I still can't believe I agreed to this," he muttered as Jennifer handed him a garment bag. "The women's restroom on the 3rd floor has been reserved for your use this week," she explained, gesturing to the bag. "Everything should fit. We used your measurements from the company retreat tailoring." Bennett trudged to the elevator, each step feeling like a march to his own professional funeral. Inside the empty restroom, he unzipped the bag with resignation. The outfit consisted of a knee-length navy pleated skirt, a crisp white blouse, flesh-toned pantyhose, and modest 2-inch black heels. A small makeup kit and a note with basic application instructions sat in a side pocket. "This is insane," Bennett whispered to his reflection, but began changing nonetheless. The pantyhose proved immediately challenging, nearly ripping twice before he managed to pull them up properly. The skirt zipped up the side with unexpected ease, sitting high on his waist. The blouse buttoned differently than he was accustomed to, and the fabric felt lighter against his skin. Following the simplified makeup instructions, he applied minimal foundation, mascara, and a neutral lipstick. The final touch was a pair of small pearl earrings for his long-pierced but rarely used ear piercings, a relic from college days. Stepping back, Bennett hardly recognized himself. The clothes fit surprisingly well, and while he looked unmistakably like a man in women's clothing, the overall effect wasn't as ridiculous as he had feared. The sound of the main office door opening in the distance shattered his moment of relief. People were arriving. Taking a deep breath, Bennett gathered his regular clothes into the garment bag and stepped out. Walking in heels required his complete concentration, making it impossible to avoid notice as he made his way to his cubicle. The office fell silent as heads turned. Someone dropped a coffee mug, the ceramic shattering against the tile.
"Morning,"
Bennett managed to say, his face burning as he quickened his pace. Reaching his desk was like finding sanctuary in a storm. He sat down carefully, mindful of the skirt, and immediately turned to his computer, pretending to be absorbed in emails while his heart hammered against his ribs. Dennis from accounting stopped by first, rocking awkwardly on his heels. So, this is the culture thing Jennifer mentioned in the email. You drew the short straw, huh? Something like that, Bennett replied, not looking up. Brave man. Couldn't pay me enough. Dennis lingered a moment longer before wandering off. By mid-morning, the initial shock had subsided into uncomfortable glances and whispered conversations. Bennett remained at his desk, taking calls but declining in-person client meetings. The skirt felt strange when he crossed his legs, and the pantyhose made his legs itch. Lunch presented a new challenge. The thought of walking through the office cafeteria made Bennett's stomach turn. Instead, he texted his friend Melissa from graphic design. Could you grab me a sandwich? Can't face the cafeteria. Melissa appeared at his desk 15 minutes later with a turkey sandwich and sympathetic smile. You know, you don't look half bad. The Navy works with your coloring. Bennett rolled his eyes. Don't even start. I'm serious, she continued, perching on the edge of his desk. Most guys would look like a disaster, but you have the frame for it. What did they offer you for this? Enough, Bennett mumbled around a bite of sandwich. The afternoon dragged endlessly. Every trip to the copier or water cooler became an exercise in dignity preservation. Bennett's feet ached from the unaccustomed shoes, and the constant awareness of his appearance was exhausting. When 5 o'clock p.m. finally arrived, Bennett nearly sprinted to the third-floor restroom, changing back into his regular clothes with tremendous relief. The drive home felt like escaping prison. That evening, alone in his apartment, Bennett examined the outfit for Tuesday that Jennifer had included in a separate bag. A gray pencil skirt, a pale blue blouse, and slightly higher heels. He hung them carefully in his closet, trying not to think about tomorrow. Sleep came fitfully, his dreams filled with walking endless office corridors, while co-workers pointed and laughed. Tuesday proved marginally easier, if only because the initial shock had worn off. Bennett arrived early again, taking time to put on the gray pencil skirt and blue blouse with slightly more confidence. The makeup went on smoother, and he managed to walk more naturally in the heels. "Looking good, Bennett," called Marcus from sales, earning him a death glare that silenced further comments. Jennifer stopped by mid-morning. "The executive team is pleased with how you're handling this. Remember, the goal is to challenge perceptions and create conversation." "Easy for them to say," Bennett muttered after she left. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother, asking if they were still on for dinner that weekend. The thought of explaining this situation to anyone outside work made him instantly queasy. By Wednesday, an unexpected shift began. Bennett arrived wearing a floral A-line skirt paired with a soft pink cardigan over a white shell. He'd spent extra time on his makeup, having watched a tutorial video the night before. The heels, now a comfortable 2.5 inches, clicked confidently across the floor as he walked. "Morning, everyone," he said, noticing his voice had naturally softened its usual gruff edge. His colleague Diane smiled warmly. "That skirt is beautiful. The pattern really suits you." Instead of cringing, Bennett found himself saying, "Thanks. The pockets sold me." He demonstrated by slipping his hand into the hidden side pocket, eliciting a laugh from Diane. "Women's clothes with actual pockets? Now that's revolutionary." Throughout the day, Bennett found himself relaxing. The initial humiliation had faded, replaced by a strange, new awareness. The clothes felt different, the fabrics softer, the cuts more intricate. He caught himself enjoying the swish of the skirt as he walked, and the way the cardigan draped across his shoulders. During a team meeting, he contributed normally, almost forgetting his unusual attire until he noticed a new client doing a double take during the video conference. Rather than shrinking away, Bennett addressed it directly. "Our company is conducting a gender expression initiative this week. I'm participating to help us all examine workplace norms and biases." The client, initially surprised, nodded appreciatively. "That's actually pretty progressive. My daughter's company did something similar last year." That evening, Bennett didn't immediately change out of his work clothes. Instead, he prepared dinner, made a phone call to reschedule his weekend plans with his mother, and even sat down to watch television, all while still dressed in the skirt and cardigan. It wasn't until he was getting ready for bed that he realized how naturally he'd moved through his evening routine. Thursday brought a burgundy wrap dress that accentuated his waist and made his auburn hair appear richer in tone. Bennett spent extra time styling his normally short hair, using product to give it more volume and shape. The result was subtly feminine without looking like he was trying too hard. Conversations in the office had evolved from awkward jokes to genuine discussions about gender expectations and professional attire. "I've worn heels for 20 years, commented Eleanor from legal. "My podiatrist says I've permanently damaged my feet, but clients expect it." "That's ridiculous," Bennett replied, genuinely sympathetic. "These have been killing me after just a few days." By Friday morning, something fundamental had shifted. Bennett carefully selected the black pencil skirt and red silk blouse from the final garment bag. The outfit included sheer black stockings with a subtle seam up the back and 3-inch black pumps that elongated his legs. He'd practiced walking in them the night before, pacing his apartment until the movements felt natural. His makeup application had improved dramatically. Bennett contoured his face slightly, applied mascara without smudging, and chose a red lipstick that perfectly matched his blouse. Looking in the mirror, he barely recognized himself, not because he looked like a different person, but because he looked like a more authentic version of himself. The revelation struck him with unexpected force. This wasn't merely tolerating an uncomfortable assignment anymore. Something about presenting this way felt right in a way he'd never allowed himself to acknowledge. "Good morning," Jennifer said, meeting him at his cubicle. "Today completes the formal experiment. I'd like you to join the executive team at 4 to discuss your experience." Bennett nodded, smoothing his skirt as he sat. "I'll be there." Throughout the day, colleagues stopped by to commend his participation. Many admitted they'd initially thought the experiment was inappropriate, but had come to appreciate the conversations it generated. "You've been incredibly professional about this whole thing," his supervisor noted. "Not everyone could have handled it with such grace." At the 4 o'clock meeting, Bennett sat confidently at the conference table, legs crossed at the ankle as he'd learned to do in a skirt. The executive team asked detailed questions about his experience, which he answered thoughtfully. "The most surprising aspect," Bennett explained, "was how quickly the external discomfort faded, allowing me to recognize something I've probably always known but never confronted." The CEO leaned forward. "And what's that?" Bennett took a deep breath. "That gender expression is more complex than I realized, and that I personally might have some exploration to do." After the meeting, Jennifer handed him an envelope containing the promised bonus check. "The official experiment ends today, but I want you to know that this company supports employees being their authentic selves." Bennett nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I might need some time to figure out exactly what that means for me." That evening, Rather than changing back into his male clothes, Bennett carefully hung up the red blouse and black skirt. Opening his laptop, he began researching gender identity, cross-dressing communities, and resources for questioning individuals. The name came to him naturally, Adeline. It felt right, sophisticated but approachable, like the person he glimpsed in the mirror this week. Over the weekend, Bennett, now privately thinking of himself as Adeline when dressed, went shopping. Not at department stores where he might encounter coworkers, but at boutiques in a neighboring town. A helpful sales associate assisted with sizing and style suggestions, never once making Adeline feel judged. By Sunday evening, Adeline had assembled a modest but versatile wardrobe: 3 skirts, several blouses, 2 dresses, and proper undergarments. Sitting on the edge of the bed in a teal wrap dress, Adeline composed an email to Jennifer. "I'd like to discuss how the experiment has affected me personally and explore what accommodations might be possible as I continue my gender journey. Would you have time to meet privately on Monday?" Jennifer's response came quickly. "Absolutely. 8:00 a.m. in my office. The company has resources to support you." Monday morning, Bennett arrived at work in his regular male attire, carrying a small bag containing a change of clothes. The office seemed strangely colorless after a week of exploring a more vibrant presentation. Jennifer welcomed him into her office with a warm smile. "I suspected this might happen. Not with you specifically, but the psychology research behind the experiment suggested it might be a catalyst for someone." "You mean this was about more than just company culture?" Bennett asked. "The primary goal was exactly as stated, to challenge workplace gender norms. But studies show that these experiences can sometimes help people recognize aspects of themselves they've suppressed." She slid a folder across the desk. "These are our company policies regarding gender transition and expression in the workplace. Take some time to review them." Bennett examined the comprehensive documents outlining support resources, non-discrimination protections, and practical transition guidelines for transgender employees. "I don't know if I'm transgender," Bennett admitted. "I just know that being Adeline feels right in a way I can't explain." "You don't need to label yourself immediately," Jennifer assured him. "What matters is that you have the space to explore safely. What would help you right now?" After thoughtful discussion, they developed a gradual plan. Bennett would continue presenting as male at work initially, while meeting regularly with Jennifer and a recommended therapist specializing in gender identity. Meanwhile, he would live as Adeline outside work hours, gradually becoming comfortable with a more consistent feminine presentation. The following weeks brought profound change. Therapy sessions helped Adeline untangle years of repressed feelings and recognize patterns throughout her life. Childhood moments of gravitating toward feminine things, inexplicable discomfort with traditional masculinity, and the unexpected comfort she'd found during the experiment. 3 months after the initial experiment, Adeline met with Jennifer and HR to formalize her workplace transition plan. She'd been living as female outside work consistently, growing her auburn hair out, and developing a personal style that felt authentic, professional, but with touches of color and femininity that expressed her personality. "I'd like to begin coming to work as Adeline full-time next month," she explained during the meeting. "I've legally changed my name, and I'm starting hormone therapy next week." The transition announcement went out to staff via email, followed by a brief in-person meeting where colleagues could ask respectful questions. Many expressed support, particularly those who had witnessed Adeline's participation in the original experiment. On Adeline's first official day, she arrived wearing a forest green sheath dress that complemented her auburn hair, now styled in a short feminine cut. Her makeup was subtle but polished, and she walked with confidence in modest heels. Melissa from graphic design greeted her with a warm hug. "You look radiant, like you've finally exhaled after holding your breath for years." "That's exactly how it feels," Adeline replied, surprised by the accuracy of the description. The transition wasn't without challenges. Client relationships required careful navigation, and occasionally Adeline encountered confusion or ignorance. Yet the foundation laid during the experiment had prepared the office culture remarkably well. Where awkward situations arose, colleagues often stepped in supportively before Adeline needed to address issues herself. 6 months later, during her performance review, Adeline's supervisor noted an unexpected benefit. "Your client satisfaction ratings have actually increased. Several have commented on your enhanced communication skills and authentic presence." "I'm not constantly expending energy pretending to be someone I'm not," Adeline explained. "That leaves more bandwidth for connecting with clients and doing good work." By the 1-year anniversary of the experiment, Adeline had been living fully as herself for 9 months. Her hormone therapy had softened her features and begun redistributing body fat in a more feminine pattern. Her auburn hair now reached her shoulders, and she'd developed a signature style of classic professional wear with thoughtful accessories. Jennifer invited her to lunch to mark the occasion. "Did you ever imagine we'd be sitting here a year ago?" she asked, as they settled at a table in the upscale restaurant near their office. Adeline shook her head, smoothing her navy pencil skirt, a more expensive version of the very first skirt she'd worn during the experiment. "Never. I was terrified that first Monday, convinced my career was over. And now? Now I understand it was actually beginning." Adeline sipped her water. "The company's taking the experiment to other branches, I hear." Jennifer nodded. "With modifications based on what we learned. Less focused on having men wear women's clothing specifically, more about challenging all gender-based dress expectations. We're calling it the Adeline Project, with your permission." Emotion caught in Adeline's throat. "Really?" "Your journey has been inspiring, but more importantly, it highlighted how arbitrary many of our workplace norms are. The data shows improved morale, communication, and even productivity since we began challenging these constructs." After lunch, walking back to the office in comfortable heels that now felt as natural as breathing, Adeline reflected on the extraordinary path she'd traveled, from reluctant participant to authentic self in just 1 year. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother, who, after initial struggle, had become one of her strongest advocates. "Lunch this weekend to celebrate your work anniversary? So proud of you." Adeline smiled, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear as she typed her reply. The experiment that began as professional humiliation had ultimately led to personal liberation, proving that sometimes the most significant journeys begin with something as seemingly trivial as changing one's clothes. Entering the office building, a new employee held the door, smiling politely. "Thank you, ma'am." The simple, ordinary acknowledgement of her true self still brought Adeline quiet joy. She nodded graciously and continued to her desk, where a small gift bag waited. Inside was a framed photo of the marketing team, with Adeline front and center, along with a card signed by everyone. The message inside read simply, "Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. You make us better." Adeline placed the frame on her desk, straightened her blouse, and turned to her computer to begin the afternoon's work, not as someone playing a role or fulfilling an experiment, but simply as herself. Adeline Morgan, finally at home in her own life, moving forward with clarity and purpose that had eluded her for 32 years. When a new client arrived for their meeting later that afternoon, Adeline rose confidently, extending her hand. "I'm Adeline Morgan, Senior Marketing Strategist. I'll be handling your campaign personally." The way the words flowed naturally from her lips, without hesitation or discomfort, was perhaps the greatest measure of how far she'd come. What had begun as a corporate experiment had transformed into a life fully and authentically lived. One day, one choice, one moment of courage at a time. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!